Alright, so I'm quickly shifting over into gear talking about AI, specifically as it pertains to a video I watched. I'm not going to go through the whole entire thing that I just said, but there's a video before this. I don't know yet what I'm going to title it, but it's going to have something to do about paganism and Christianity in the year 2025 and AI. But I don't know what it's going to be called yet. Sorry, I'm trying to find the title of this video. Okay, the video I'm referencing is called, is by Jacob Grant Rogue Nation. And it's called seven pagan Christmas traditions that aren't really pagan. So let me read kind of what he wrote. And in the previous episode, I was discussing that I don't think I've ever heard this viewpoint before, that there are no pagan origins of the things that he mentions. Okay, well, this is a little different. Now that I'm reading what he wrote, this is a little different than what he actually said. But, now that I'm just glancing at it, because I didn't read it before. But yeah, what he said, and then kind of like I talked previously about my own personal experiences about learning about these topics in my past, and I would probably say I wasn't looking any of this up on AI for the most part anytime before 2023, and I have posted probably multiple episodes of researched topics of where I've listened to people speak about the pagan origins, or even looked up some of them, or my history of like how I learned about that. And now I'm kind of curious to know if there's been a shift somewhere in the thinking or the learning or the teaching or AI switching what people know, or if the people I was learning from or the topics, the way that they were teaching them was inaccurate. We have seen firsthand on this channel, guys, when I look up stuff on AI, if I have a physical text and then I'm reading it out of AI and trying to compare the two, it is not always 100%. We all know that. And so I'm not going to try to be like AI is the proof. I don't trust AI the way that a lot of people might. I use it for ease at times. I use it for general reference at times. I like that it's fast changing, but I also don't like that it's based on, I guess, a catalog or record of what's actually out there on the internet, and it's not necessarily. So basically, I guess I'll put it this way. This is the best way I can describe AI, and I might be wrong about this, but and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong. And just because I don't hear someone correcting me isn't going to mean that I think that I'm right. I think that I'm potentially wrong on my understanding, but I might be right. Say if there's a new thing that people don't talk about. I'm going to make something up that's not true at all. But say if you took a zebra pen, those kind of like pens with a metal kind of casing, metal and plastic casing, that are ballpoint pens usually. Say you take one of those classic zebra ballpoint pens, and you write something on paper, but maybe it's a new style of recycled paper that once you write something you can erase it with your finger. I don't know, I'm making up the most stupid story, but say that's the case, and this is something that's never existed before. Now, all of a sudden, if it's like a hit story somewhere and it goes viral, now people are going to be searching this. And now, maybe last week when you searched zebra pens, it was more related to holiday shopping and discounts and quick shipping. And now when you search zebra pens, all the articles have to do with this recycled paper and finger erasing of the zebra ballpoint pen ink on the paper. Like, those stories are ranking on the internet. They're ranking the traffic that's searching organically for those topics. Now the keywords of zebra pen and are now more related to the most viral and the most high traffic searched content. So it surfaces to the top, and that's going to be the easiest stuff to find. And because that's what people are finding, now people are going to start creating content about this zebra pen that has to do with the paper. They're going to be showing themselves writing with it and erasing with their finger on this type of paper, and they're going to be showing themselves. Now it's going to branch out. Maybe now people aren't even talking about the zebra pens, but they're talking about the multiple uses of this type of recycled paper. Oh, look, when I make a paper airplane out of it, it flies different than when I make a paper airplane out of this other type of paper that I normally use. But there's something about this paper that he initially was talking about the pen with the paper combo, and now the stories have shifted into talking about the paper itself. And now we're no longer talking about zebra pens, but this is kind of how things evolve on the internet. The more the main story, when people start searching for recycled paper or searching for zebra pens, and now it's ranking for those stories, and it's going to be on the first page of Google. And so now that's the content people find when they actually want to buy a zebra pen. Now it's all connected to this recycled paper. And then you start asking questions to AI about, is it best to use, what type of pen is best to use with recycled paper? Of course, there's going to be a bunch of information and answers that come up that have to do with the zebra pen, because of how the traffic is making it so that these types of keywords and sites talking about these keywords that are blogs and sites and news stories and all these things that that are helping for the topic to rank. But how popular is it? Like, how often are people really using these pens? Like, before they went viral, or before the recycled paper thing went viral too, nobody cared about the zebra pens or the paper, the recycled paper specifically. But now there's a boom in sales, and it just becomes a whole thing. Like, there's this whole machine that works this way. And so maybe if in 2024 I was searching about zebra pens and paper, recycled paper, none of this type of topic would have ever come up, because the phenomenon wouldn't have gone viral. Nobody would have known about the finger erasing of the ink thing. Nobody would have known any of that. But now, because something went viral somewhere, now when you search for it, the information that comes up through AI is based on what people are creating content about. And people are creating content about this topic because that's the topic that's ranking when they search for it. And so it just creates the cycle until the cycle kind of shifts into something else. And I feel that's my issue with AI, is that it's not completely accurate. It's accurate based on what's a popular opinion, or based on what's ranking, or what's popular and what's talked about and what people are posting about more often. And it's based on your wording, because sometimes you can challenge it and it changes. You can say about the zebra pen, you can ask about the zebra pen, and what you would have asked last week when this wasn't a story, you're going to get information that's different now this week, now that there's a story circulating about something new and interesting. AI changes as society's interest changes, as traffic and searches and content creation changes. Whatever people are focusing on, AI is going to shift according to that, right? And maybe I'm wrong. I might be wrong, but I think that's an issue, personally, because it's not static. It's not set in time. Like, the answers aren't set in time. You know, they're not set in, okay, somebody wrote a book in like the 1100s and this is the proof that we have because we're all reading from this book from way back then. And even if that book was manipulated for some reason or another, you know, it's still the same book that everybody's referencing versus AI that's shifting as people are creating information. But the information that people create is not always correct. The information I create is probably not always correct either. But that's why I don't say that I'm always correct. I hope that when people listen to anything or read anything that I write or whatever, that they're not like, oh, like she knows every single thing. I try and often encourage people, you know, anything you hear me say, look it up for yourself. Look it up sideways, look it up upside down, look it up in another language, look it up somewhere else, you know. I mean, you know, I'm just my brain that I do this when I have both the desire and the time and the energy and willpower to post. I'm not posting every day. I'm not posting to make money. I'm not, you know, it's just a hobby, a passion, an interest, something I have fun doing. And I only do it when I have fun doing it. And then sometimes you've noticed I have nothing to post, so I've stopped doing the daily, let me just post daily for the sake of posting when I have nothing to say. I post when something kind of, you know, I try to post holiday times and certain times a year when I know people might be looking for content that's something a little alternative. But my explanation about AI might be wrong, but I think that's kind of how it works. And I've talked about the example of, I have this old keyboard from the late 90s, a Yamaha PSR 520, where one day I was so lazy and I was sitting there and I was Amazon shopping and I was like, I want to use my keyboard and make some music, but I don't really want to make music. You know, I want to make music, but I need new batteries. And, you know, I had some stuff on top of my keyboard, and it's like a process to kind of clean the stuff off, you know, like I have like a marimba and like an ocarina and probably some like guitar picks and guitar strap and like probably a couple sheet music books, like stuff like that on top of my, I have a towel covering the keyboard. I have that stuff on top of the keyboard. The towel that's covering it. And I was kind of lazy. I was like, I'm gonna have to go over and move my stuff and then take the keyboard off of the stand and flip it over and open it up and take out the batteries. And because of the way the batteries are kind of lined up in there, it's like one tube where the batteries go. And now I had looked at that maybe like a week before. I had been in the back of that keyboard with that panel open and saw the batteries. So I knew they were like D-size batteries. But what I didn't know was, did I need 4 or 6 or 8? I was somewhere between 6 or 8 in my head. I was like, I probably need 6 or 8. But this was like a week later, where I was about to buy the batteries that I knew I needed because I'd been testing out the keyboard the week before and it wasn't working right. And I came to the conclusion that it's probably the batteries. Like, it was turning on and it was like flickering. But that's the part that I thought was weird, is every time I turned it on, it would still be on and it would flicker. But I could play like 1 or 2 notes and then I wouldn't hear anything. Or I would hear something and it wouldn't be like the right sound. It would be like out of tune or something, and I'm like, what? Like, it's an electric keyboard. It's not supposed to be like wrong, you know, the wrong notes or like the wrong key or whatever. Like, and it has a little digital screen that was like flashing, but it was on. It would turn on. So I was like, it's probably not the battery because it turns on. It's It's probably not the batteries. But then I was like, you know what? The cheapest option for me to do to try to fix this, because I had some external adapters that I thought I had used in the past, but they weren't really working. They're the type that you can kind of set the voltage different. It was like a multi-voltage adapter. And I thought I had used it before. And this is also from the 90s. I spent my allowance on it back in the 90s, so maybe the adapter doesn't even work. But I came to the conclusion that before I go to the shop to get my keyboard fixed, I'm gonna try one simple thing and just get new batteries off Amazon. And so the day that I was doing the shopping, I'm sitting on my bed and I'm looking at my keyboard and I'm like, I don't know how many batteries I need. And so I go on ChatGPT and I ask, how many batteries does the Yamaha PSR 520 take? And it said something like 6 AA batteries. And I was like, hold up, buddy, that's wrong. I know it's wrong because I looked back there last week and I am so certain that I did not see AA batteries. There is a huge difference, or maybe it said AAA, I don't know. There was a huge difference. So I get into this little debate with ChatGPT, going back and forth about, no, it doesn't have that size of batteries. Eventually, I end up looking at the manual, the PDF manual online, and I was like, the PDF manual says on page blah 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 that it takes this many batteries of this size. And then ChatGPT finally was like, oh yeah, it does, or whatever. And I'm like, but you were telling me like 4 or 5 different ways that it takes some like AA batteries. You never said anything about D batteries until I showed you a page that said that. But where it got the wrong information, I don't know. And when I've looked up biblical stuff, that happens too. You guys probably remember an episode where I was trying to look up some Talmudic thing that was not there. Almost every time, like I'd say a high percentage of the time when I'm looking up stuff that has to do with Talmud, it's not there. So either the resources I have for Talmud online are incorrect, or AI is incorrect, or even the books that I physically have are incorrect. Because there was one time I was looking at the physical book, I was looking on the internet, free books, and then I was looking at AI, and AI was telling me a completely different thing, and I was not able to reference in the books the area where it said this information was supposed to be found. And with Talmud, I find that often. Now, let's roll into this. So this guy's video, he says, it's the same tired accusations every year. Christmas is pagan. December 25th is a pagan holiday. Christmas trees worship Roman gods. Mistletoe and gift giving and stockings and cheesecake and everything about the holiday is pure evil. Now this is all him talking, not me. But as history indicates, none of this is true. In fact, the sources seem to indicate that pagan rituals actually borrowed from Christianity. In some instances, anyway. Join me for a brief look at 7 of the most popular Christmas traditions and how they tie back to not pagan roots, but Christian ones. So if you're interested in his video that says that, I'm not saying don't watch it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying check it out. I'm saying learn, check it out, study it, see what you think. And if you even want to, you can go back through some of my content and see how it compares. Now, part of my very lengthy response that I'm probably going to take down, I'm going to reread the part that I read before I start talking about the AI part that I was writing. I said, honest question and not trolling. Any thoughts on Todd Jacobson? And I wrote that wrong, and then I corrected it a while ago, saying, any thoughts on Jacob Todson's Norse pagan winter celebration practices and traditions. If anyone has seen his vids, I'm just curious to know if there are opinions. People who like these topics might find interest. Now he talks about other rituals that are almost more similar to, if you've seen episodes of The Office where Dwight is talking about his family, his historic German traditions of I guess his character is somewhat supposed to be like some kind of Amish like Anabaptist Amish type of people, kind of combined with some kind of other German group, German type of, it's kind of like a mixture. I don't think, because it's not purely Amish, but he has his cousin named Mose that kind of dresses Amish and looks Amish, and they live on a beet farm, and there's all this kind of, and he has like a bed and breakfast kind of thing going on. But there is some parts where he talks about the Havamal and these other kind of like stories and things that are like some kind of German stories about, what's his name, Belschnickel, and have you been impish and that kind of thing. And then I can't remember the what's his name, something Peter, Shruel Peter or something like that. I don't remember the name of the character, but I don't know what that is all from, but part of the food, I remember like the Havamal and the other kind of stuff seemed very relevant to what Jacob Todson talks about in some of his past few years of videos about Norse pagan traditions that he has adopted. So I put also strange, but just note that AI might change the available of historical sources depending how you search. I've done Hanukkah and Christmas series and multiple holiday series on pods and blogs for over 7 years. I've noticed the sources I originally found are now no longer the same sources in 2025. I'm talking about the sources I found on the internet, not the sources that I looked up in hard copy books. Not necessarily. No, I don't think there's been issues with hard copy books. Just stuff online. I'd recommend not just Googling. Use it for sources, then look at the literal book pages of historical documents. I hope that didn't come off too rude, saying literal. Maybe I should take that out. But what I'm trying to say is like the physical pages. Look at the actual physical books, or even like a PDF version of it. There are errors in a lot of AI content, especially surrounding religious topics. I noticed when looking up Talmud topics, there's an inconsistency. And when looking up topics before the Bible was canonized, like I wasn't there obviously before it was canonized, but I guess what I'm trying to say is looking up topics about Christianity before the Bible was canonized. Like, it's hard to find a lot of information. There's more now, but guys, a lot of this stuff I've been trying to search for years of my life, and only now in very recent years has it become a lot easier. Like, I was trying to look up a lot about the Council at Nicaea. I finally found information about that, I think last year. And sorry if I mix up 2024 and 2023 sometimes. It's been a long road. But I said, like that portion of time between the death of Jesus and when all the councils, such as Nicaea, chose which books would be considered scripture. I'd recommend to read it all. But that's my opinion. Guess the tricky part is that the Christianity shown in the Bible is different today, considering religious and political and military campaigns to spread, and all the cultural interactions and interpretations and hidden agendas people are forced to keep on our toes. Just keep studying. That's my opinion. It never gets old. Scripture study and history of scripture is a fantastic thing to have access to. Just be careful. It seems to be changing. I just noted I have a typo. I guess I would say I'm just noticing it since every time near October I start with a series on Halloween, then I go till New Year's Eve. And this year my Google searches are turning up. This year my Google searches are turning up different info than they were in past years. And the more variety of information people post, AI will be changing what is available to the masses. Still, never stop studying. I'm gonna delete that, but because it's very long-winded and I don't expect people to really care. But it's there right now. It'll probably be there by the time I post this. I'll probably keep it up through Christmas. We'll see. And then the next day after Christmas is going to be Hanukkah. Kwanzaa. Wow. Hanukkah ended early this week on Sunday, and it's Wednesday right now. It's Christmas Eve today. So I don't know. So let me look up. Okay, when I was reading a little bit about what he was talking about, let me see if I can see what I had searched. So I guess I searched when was Christmas? When were Christians forced to celebrate Christmas? And it says that they weren't, according to AI Overview, and they're citing History Channel, I guess. I don't know those other icons, but there's like 6 icons that it's supposed to be referencing. It says Christians weren't exactly forced to celebrate Christmas, but the church formally established December 25th as the date around 336 AD in Rome during Emperor Constantine's reign, likely to absorb existing Roman winter festivals like Saturnalia and Sol Invictus. To help Christianity grow, though some scholars debate the exact reasons for the date choices. While early Christians had various feast days, Christmas became a major festival later. Sorry, there's people walking around the house. A major festival later, spreading through Europe and evolving over centuries, with some groups, like Puritans, even banning it later. Key milestones: 2nd to 3rd century, early Christians celebrated Jesus' birth, but no single date was agreed upon. 336 AD, the first recorded Christmas celebration on December 25th in Rome, linked to Emperor Constantine. 4th century, church officials, including Pope Julius I, solidified December 25th as the date, possibly to align with pagan festivals. So maybe that's what I had heard of before. 6th century, Christmas spread to England. 9th century, became a major festival across the Roman Empire. 17th century, the English Parliament, dominated by Puritans, banned Christmas, seeing it as unreligious, though it was restored later. why December 25th? Pagan festival theory. Many people believe the date was chosen to co-opt the popular Roman winter solstice festivals of Saturnalia, honoring the god Saturn, and Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. Calculation theory. Another idea suggests early Christians used symbolic math to calculate Jesus' birth date, placing it around the winter solstice. Okay, so maybe that 17th century of the English Parliament, the Puritans that were in English Parliament who were banning Christmas, maybe that's where a lot of the theories come from what I learned growing up. Because the church I come from was from 1844. So they weren't way too far off from this Puritan ban time frame. And here's to celebrate Christmas. So yeah, and so I guess it is interesting. And I had asked another question before that. I don't think it's gonna show. I don't know what I asked. Cause I don't have the history of it. I thought I was gonna be able to go backwards. But yeah, to me that was more closely related. Yeah, no, so dang, I wish I had the other topic. I don't even remember what I asked. So let me see what he says about let's see what AI says about what is the definition of pagan. Does it say the same thing he said? It says especially in historical context. This is dictionary, it's not AI. A person holding religious beliefs other than those of the main or recognized religions. So I'm not okay. And then AI overview says, based on 3 sources, which I think is Facebook, Wikipedia. Oh, so I guess it's 5 total. And the other one had 3 plus 6. So I think this one has 2 plus 3. So I was wrong. It's not 6 total sources. The other one had, I guess, 9 total sources. And this one has 5 total sources. The real meaning of pagan refers to pre-Christian religions, often polytheistic and nature-based. Okay. And so that's the definition he used. He didn't use the other definition of pagan, which is religious other than from the mainstream religion. AI mentioned specifically polytheistic. I don't know if I'd ever heard that distinction before. I don't know. I'm not good enough at definitions to even tell, but I don't know. I'm curious to know some of the stuff he mentions, like how he mentions the okay. Now, I don't know off the top of my head all this stuff. I have past video posts or one or a series that was made by someone I used to kind of study with a group. This person would teach a lot of us, and of course it was always like study together, and there was a lot of studying, and even though they would preach, like, we were still studying it. So at that time, I can't say that I never saw in the books with my own eyes what was being taught. I did see it. I know maybe it was framed a certain way, but I'm not going to say that theory was false. But also, this guy is saying that his theory is correct, and I'm just curious about it because I'm not sure if he's basing it on Google AI or if he's basing it on actual sources. He's saying that there are no sources that state these things, but I'm pretty sure I've learned that there are sources that state these things. Just off the top of my head, I'm rusty because I kind of put down a lot of these Christmas topics. You probably noticed this year and last year I wasn't doing too good with the holiday topics. I got a little bored with them, and honestly, I record on here based on what's actually happening in my life. So if I have nothing to really record or nothing sparking my interest, I try not to force it. But if something is kind of coming up near the time frame and it's kind of relevant, then I'm kind of like way more pumped up about it. But I guess his main idea here is don't worry so much about it because it's not really a bad thing ultimately. He kind of takes the stance that ultimately the things that are being done are not so big of a deal. I don't know what I think. I think I kind of waver between, okay, I can tell you what I've thought as we've gone into Christmas this year. So I've had a history of my own where I stopped celebrating Christmas for those reasons, because I was like, well, I don't want to do pagan worship, and I don't even know why we're doing these things. Like, why do we have the tree? Why do we have the thing? Why are we even celebrating Christmas? Christmas isn't in the Bible. Hanukkah is also not in the Bible, but Hanukkah is in the Apocrypha. I guess what I don't remember, is Hanukkah a commanded festival? Now I'm using AI to look this up. No, the Feast of Dedication is not a biblically commanded festival. It's a rabbinical holiday established later by the Maccabees to commemorate the temple's rededication. It holds no significant cultural and religious meaning, with Jesus himself celebrating it as mentioned in the New Testament. While not in the Torah, like the major feasts, it's a time of rejoicing, remembrance, and God's faithfulness and spiritual rededication, though it doesn't carry the same scriptural weight as God's appointed feasts. So you see reference to it a little bit in the New Testament. Is there reference to it in the Old Testament? Leviticus 23 shows God's commanded feasts, so it kind of has them all listed there. And then there's Judas Maccabeus. And there's that name, the desecration that was done by Antiochus Epiphanes, I guess the fourth. So I'm wondering, so I know Jews do celebrate it, but I guess I'd have to see if in the book of, I don't know which book of Maccabees specifically, but in one of the books of Maccabees, because I think there's like multiple books of Maccabees or something. Don't quote me on that, but I think there's like a first and second, maybe a third, I don't know. I don't remember the apocryphal books off the top of my head. Like, I put stuff down, I get rusty. And I've definitely put this stuff down for a while now. But yeah, I remember I guess those were kind of my main questions, because I guess Hanukkah is kind of maybe not commanded, I guess. I still have to look that up. I want to see the exact wording. And then Christmas isn't even mentioned anywhere in the Bible. The birth of Jesus is mentioned. Not all the Gospels mention it, but some do. And then there's a lot of stuff about the birth of Jesus that's interesting, or even the pregnancy of Mary. But yeah, Jesus being born, and then also I learned in the past about like the history of birthdays, that like kings and things like that, their birthdays were celebrated, but it wasn't really like the most common practice to be celebrating like everybody's birthday. Because I'm trying to think of how many birthdays you see in the Bible. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's not there that's like, I wonder why that's not there. But yeah, birthdays would be one of them. It's not like a main topic. The birthday of Joseph, the birthday of Jesus, the birthday of David, the birthday of, like, you don't see like a whole bunch of like, the disciples decided to celebrate Peter's birthday. It's like, no, they weren't really doing all that. So there's really not a lot of birthday talk. Was it a birthday when king or queen, was it Herod who beheaded John the Baptist, or the wife or daughter or somebody that was related to King Herod, who wanted the head of John the Baptist on a plate or something, on a platter, something like that, crazy, for a birthday related thing? I don't know. Look that up. I don't even know why I'm even saying that, because I don't know if it's true, but like I said, I don't fully trust my memory sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm gonna have to go back and do my own research, and see kind of what it was that I was referencing, and see what he's referencing, because he's saying that it's not true. But I think the first thing I'm gonna go do, because I miss actually watching Jacob Todson's videos, and I haven't been regularly watching, he does have something about paganism in America. He does have something about traditions of Hanukkah. No, sorry. What am I talking about? Traditions of Christmas. I don't think he mentions anything about Hanukkah. I don't know why he would, but I don't think he does. Actually, I wonder if he ever mentioned anything about any of these Roman leaders. But let me see. I want to go through his videos, some of them, and then kind of see what he was saying again, because I think he has the best description I've seen. I'm not sure what Esoterica would say. There's a website, a YouTube I do like called Esoterica. Esoterica has a lot of stuff kind of about historical, biblical stuff. And then I think it's called Esoterica. And then yeah, all the history of like the symbolism of stuff. And I also want to actually look at that episode of The Office where, or I think it's multiple episodes where Dwight's kind of talking about his culture. Such a weird, funny, crazy show. But I want to look at some of that stuff to kind of see what I've been looking at in the past and how I came to some past conclusions and where these current conclusions are kind of leading. Now, like I said, in the new year, I do want to focus, well, not in the new year, but I've already started. I guess this week, last week, looking into stuff that's kind of more, I feel like I've been a little harsh about Jesus. I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, I think to some people that's probably a turn off. And I'm not doing this to kind of turn off people or turn different people on or like just for the appeal. But you know, I like to play both sides of the card, you know, and look at them both. And I don't think I've fairly looked at Jesus for the most part outside of like the Jewish perspective. I don't think I've looked at Christianity that closely from a Christian perspective, but I guess the reason why is my whole issue is all that time between when Christians were doing Jewish stuff and then there were all these writings and, you know, different gospels that we only have 4 gospels in the New Testament, but there's a whole ton of other gospels. There's a whole bunch of other manuscripts that have been found since, you know, the Bible was canonized. And that was, you know, the Bible wasn't even fully canonized until like hundreds of years after Jesus was even on earth. And so there's so much writing that was done that isn't talked about, isn't looked at, isn't considered. And I'm kind of curious to know how we go from, you know, when you read the Gospels and you see what Jesus is doing, right? He's living his Jewish life, and there's a lot of challenging from the upper management, if you will, like scribes, the Pharisees. They're on his case. My understanding of that isn't that they're anti-Jesus, anti-Christian. My understanding of that is culturally, it's not uncommon for rabbis to be challenged and for religious people in that culture to be debating about religious topics and about why they do certain things or how they interpret certain things and what they teach. I mean, they let him teach for that long. They let him teach for a long time. So I do think if they had found something wrong with what he was teaching earlier on, they probably would have had an issue earlier on. But it does sound like, I don't know, there was something about the court. I can't remember what I was reading about the Sanhedrin and about the court and about how somebody could be convicted of breaking the law and what the punishment would look like and what it would take for Jewish religious leaders to convict and kill someone who was a Jewish rabbi who was teaching the wrong thing, or apparently teaching the wrong thing, or doing the wrong thing, or breaking the commandments, or teaching others to do so. That kind of concept of the bloody court that I never really found the information about in the physical books, I don't think. But the whole idea of like, would it have been right or wrong according to Judaism to even have Jesus killed? Because, you know, you do see people getting, I guess, stoned to death and things are happening, but I don't remember that many times where there was like a Sanhedrin or like a Jewish court called that was like convicting these people. It just sounded like it was usually like a mob or a crowd of people who was like, oh, this lady got caught in adultery, like kill her, you know, or whoever, like the stoning of Stephen and stuff like that. I don't think that took like some kind of, did it take a process through the Sanhedrin? I don't remember, but you know, you see that, you know, you see the Gospels, you see the writings of Paul, which is like so many writings of Paul. But then there's all these other books that just aren't even included and aren't even acknowledged. I talked about it before, how I was kind of like laughing, kind of teasing my friends who had all these books about like, you know, Third Thomas or whatever the books were called. They had like a bookshelf with a bunch of books, and when I started looking at their books, I was like, whoa, they've got all these books about all these like religious topics that are like way out there. And I kind of was laughing almost hysterically because I was like, it just sounded so funny, because I looked at the books on their shelves and it was just like a bunch of books with names I had recognized, but it was like books of the Bible that weren't in the Bible, but books about those books. And this was probably early when I first moved to San Diego, and these were Adventists I went to church with. So it's taken me, I don't know how many years, decades, to get to the point of even looking at those kind of books. And I'm like, these are very interesting. Like the one that I just posted about the Gospel of Mary, or the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. That type of writing, where it's like, of course I didn't write that, but like the type of writing that writes, you know, those types of manuscripts. But you know, I'm interested to see, you know, some of the other stuff about Jesus. And, you know, I'm not, because the thing is, I grew up with the whole, like, Jesus is God, Jesus is a third of the Trinity, or however much of a part of the Trinity. You know, Jesus is divine, Jesus is the Messiah. And I've spent a while kind of challenging a lot of that, because I'm like, well, it's easy information to find that he isn't. But it's kind of interesting to me that it's not easy to find the information that he is any of those kind of mainstream Christian things. We're taught that often. We're often taught that, but we're not often it's not often literal in the Bible. And you know, there are times where Jesus is like, I am he, or like, I am, or like that kind of thing. And it's like, is that enough? But then also, when you don't see people worshiping him ever, that makes it a little interesting, because I'm like, wouldn't that be the first thing he would have said, is, I am God, worship me? Right? Like, why did he not teach that? Or why, maybe he did teach that, it's just not shown in the books of the New Testament that we are given in the official canon. And also, according to my own research, the way that the Bible was canonized and the history behind that is very shady history. And it sounded like torture and manipulation is basically what helped the decisions to move forward into what we have today. That's how people came to the conclusion. So I don't like that. If that's accurate, I don't like that. I don't like church manipulation that you see, and I don't try to hate on Catholicism, but that's kind of where you see it a lot, with like this kind of power dynamic where it's like the priests know the information, the congregation can't read, we're gonna tell you that this is what it says, And if you think about how many generations people learned like that, and then it's all like, and I'm not saying oral tradition is inaccurate or not valuable. Written tradition, I don't think, is any more valuable or accurate, because you can easily just change something, and then over time it's going to get wiped out that the other information even existed, depending on what's popular. And when you look at a lot of the Bible, not the highest percentage ever, but like when you look at some parts of the history of the Bible, you can find, like, even if you look up Lucifer, like, is Lucifer the same thing as Satan, the same thing as the serpent, the same thing as Satan and the devil, and talk about Gehenna and hell and things like that, Sheol? Is this all the same thing? Because in our head, we're taught that Satan lives in some pit down inside the earth or under the earth, somewhere deep down. Hell is down, heaven is up, and hell is fire eternally, and heaven is gates of gold and, angels everywhere, trumpets and bright light, a lot of white brightness, and hell just seems terrifying, and then the devil lives in hell and God lives in heaven, and we're kind of given this interpretation of these things, and who knows where, like, I don't know. I've never been to either, so I've had all kinds of experiences, and I'm not saying I want to have a near-death experience to a point where I get to see any of that, but I guess we'll know if it happens when it happens. I think when it comes to the really esoteric stuff and all the kind of like really like supernatural types of things, that's kind of more my favorite things about the Bible, is all the stuff that's like unexplained, and it's not just like right in your face, the stuff you have to dig for, the stuff you almost never have like a clear-cut answer for, the stuff that everybody for probably eternity is going to be debating about. I find it just interesting, but I don't know. I don't know. Is it a problem? Is it a problem to veer too far? Because cultures change. I mean, a lot of people who practice Christianity weren't originally Jews, and this whole idea about the Messiah is kind of like a Jewish thing. I mean, I think there are a lot of groups of people who believe that there's like somebody coming in the future to help things improve in some way or another, either take people to heaven or take some of them, or resurrect others, or change the world to something better, peaceful, no war, no death, no sickness, no pain. These are pretty common beliefs in most cultures, I would say. And then people getting punished for doing wrong is pretty common too. So those are definitely overlapping. And then how people were created, and then there being a God, and there being like kind of like a lineage of like who's related to who, with all these kind of like deities and things. That's pretty common. So it's not out of the norm to be like, okay, God has a son and his name is Jesus. That's not too uncommon if you compare Christianity to a lot of other religions. But if you're comparing it to like Judaism, that doesn't really work. And it's kind of hard to know where Jesus stood with a lot of stuff. Because a lot of the stuff that we're given access to in the New Testament is very confusing. And he says things, and we're taught that it means this or that. And then, you know, it's hard to really even say, like, is that what it means or not? Is that accurate or not? Is that inaccurate? What the church is usually teaching, and why did they teach it that way if that's not how I'm reading it? Or how come this other pastor teaches that it means this? Like, every single topic can have like 20 different, you know, answers, if not more. And somebody's gonna back it up with some kind of resource. And so it's really hard to tell with a lot of this stuff, you know. I don't claim that I know it all. I just like to think about it. And sometimes I watch stuff and listen to it, and I get kind of like irritable. And I like that. I like if it evokes like an emotional kind of response. Because when I first watched this guy's video, and then I'll stop talking because I'm getting tired. But when I first heard this guy's video, I was like, how is he saying all this? This can't be right. But then I was like, well, maybe I can't be right, you know? Like, so I'm kind of curious to know. Kind of curious to look into it all and compare and see kind of like where things fall. But I don't know, I like it all. I'm enjoying myself, so anytime there's an opportunity for some good learning, that's always fun for me. I'm glad I came across this video. And it's fun to kind of look at AI and kind of see how it's changing. It is changing. I know it's not going to be a popular opinion to say that, but I mean, it is changing. Because I'm looking up the same stuff all the time, and it's always coming out like different. Little by little, it's different. Like the stuff that I'm coming up to now is not stuff that when I looked it up a few years ago, I was finding that. That's not the case. So I just want to know what's up. I think it's cool. I think it's fun. I think it's interesting. And then I might start creeping myself out. It might get a little hard to really decipher. But I am very much interested in the alternative types of books that didn't make it into the Bible, but stuff that the early Christians were following before the Bible was canonized. Because that was hundreds of years where there were a bunch of other writings. And it is also interesting that there aren't really writings during when Jesus was living. Jesus didn't write a book himself. And I guess a lot of the books that are alternative to the Bible that are either in the Nag Hammadi kind of writings or, you know, other types of places that you find these writings. You know, I just wonder. I wonder if it's gonna be something that we're still gonna be thinking or teaching, or is the whole idea about paganism gonna go out the window? You know, is the surface of Christianity gonna change with AI? Because we've already seen how the political landscape changed with social media in general. Politicians and people like that starting to use social media, and you see how people are now. Now imagine what happens if AI takes over the resources. AI takes over the easy access to referencing and finding resources and recommending incorrect stuff. or answering the questions, saying incorrect stuff, and then that's going to become common knowledge, and then people are going to start posting about incorrect stuff, and then that's going to rank, and that's going to be the easiest information to find, is going to be what's circulating that's inaccurate, because most people aren't going to go back and look at these books. They're going to look on the internet first. And I'm not saying I don't, because I'm on here talking to you guys looking at the internet. So I don't know, do we need to go back to the books? Because that's kind of where my head's going, is like, be wary of what's online, including the things that I post. I'm not saying that I'm an all-knowing person. I'm not a scholar. I'm just a nerdy person who likes to research stuff when I feel like it. I like a good lit review. But I'm not like organized enough to really like write it all out outside of like a messy blog, like, or like a, show notes, description in Spotify or something. I'm probably not gonna like write a bunch of research papers. It would be cool to, though, but I just think it would be so time consuming, and a lot of times I'm going based on like the passionate energy for like a quick, like maybe there might be a project I'm working on for a while with certain topics, but it's like I do it when I feel like it still. So I don't want to get into something that I'm not going to fully finish, because I do that plenty enough, where I'm always like, I'm going to post the link, and then I don't do it, or I'm going to post about this topic, and I don't do it. So I try not to do that, and I literally just forget, because I don't write these things down when I'm talking about them sometimes. But alright, I don't know, guys. If you're doing the holidays, have good ones. If you already finished your holidays, I hope you're in a good place in the end of December, coming into the new year. If you do the Gregorian calendar, it's going to be the new year soon. If you don't do that, I don't know. I'd like to know more about what other people do. But if you do something else, have fun doing that. Do your thing. I'm not really here to like exclude anyone, but I don't want to be like, I believe in everything. I would not say I believe in every single thing that's on the face of the planet. But I do like to study stuff, and I do like the Bible, and I do like things that are about characters that were in the Bible. It's just very interesting. It's like the world's biggest puzzle that is just fun for me. And even as a kid, when I started getting into this kind of stuff, I totally wanted to know more, and I never really knew that like the internet was what was gonna make it so accessible. Like, I didn't grow up like super poor or anything, but it's like buying these books costs a lot, and a lot of the first books I bought to try to study about Kabbalah or like whatever, I bought them with my own allowance. And then there were things that I borrowed through libraries or got used off the internet. One of my friends, shout out, just gave me this cool Shabbat manual by Central Conference of American Rabbis, and it was kind of cool. So I haven't really looked at it much. It's copyrighted 1972, but I'll probably look at this on an actual Sabbath time, because I started looking at it after the end of Sabbath at the end of last week, and then I was like, let me just wait till I feel like looking at it on an actual Sabbath. It'll be a lot more interesting, maybe. Alright, that's it for now. If you guys are celebrating, have a good time. Enjoy yourselves. If you're watching good movies, or if you're going out for Chinese food, or if you're, I don't know, getting gifts, or opening gifts, or doing caroling, or going to church, or having a potluck, or doing some kind of charity, or practicing for some kind of play or musical, or just going to work, you know. Have a good one. And I'm pretty sure there's other categories of things that I didn't mention. But I hope everybody has fun. I'm not trying to tell people what to do. I just think all of this is interesting, and especially because I've kind of logged a lot of time with such topics, it is kind of interesting to see things a little bit shifting in front of my face, where I'm like, is this the internet doing it? Is it something else? Was it just like my foundation with it was limited or wrong? Or is AI really kind of being weird? I don't know. People can say what they think. I don't really know. But have a good one, guys. Thanks for listening.